Boom! Yes folks, Hume here again. How are you going? In this video, I want to talk briefly about one aspect of the negative sign. And that is the aspect where the negative sign, generally speaking, represents reversal. Something is being reversed. Something is, going in the opposite direction or just opposite to whatever it was defined as previously. Alright? So, if we're talking about, what we say, you're measuring height. You're measuring height relative to sea level. So, up is positive. Then, naturally, if you're measuring down, you would represent that using a negative sign. That way, you could distinguish between plus 5 meters or plus 6 meters and minus 5 meters or minus 6 meters. So in other words, in a mathematical situation where you're communicating to people, you don't have to say, well, it was 5 meters down, which is what you would say in natural speech, in natural language. All you need to say is minus 5. And as soon as the person sees that, they know immediately what you're talking about. That's the whole idea. It's about communication, right? If we're talking about time, simple example, a space shuttle being launched up into orbit, or a satellite or something, right? You know there's usually a countdown, T minus 20, 19, 18, we're talking seconds here, right? 17 going on the road. And then they reach 10, T minus 10, 9, 8, 7 going on the road. So in other words, the minus sign tells you that we're dealing with time before the occurrence of a particular event. Because usually when we talk about time, we usually measure time after an event has taken place. That is how we humans understand time. That is how we humans measure time. Think about the years that we use. In the year of our Lord, 2025 AD, right? And then we talk about 5000 BC. See? So, even how we talk about our year, the years that we use. I mean, we have different calendars. We have the Chinese calendar, we have the Ethiopian calendar, we have the Gregorian calendar. We have all kind of different calendars. But in general usage, and I want to believe that it is the same with all the calendars, I might stand to be corrected there. But as we know it, the years that we use are measured with reference to a particular event. So much so that the years before that event have a particular designation, right? Now, we don't use the negative sign when we're talking BC or AD. But the idea is the same. And technically speaking, we could do that if we want. I'm just saying all of that to drive home the point that when we measure in time, we usually measure it after. And the measurement after is positive. So in the case of the spaceship launching off, once the spaceship leaves the launching pad, you're now measuring time positive. How many seconds after the launch is what we're now talking about. But if we're talking about before the launch, we're talking negative, right? So the negative sign signifies that the event has not yet occurred. How about if we're talking about rotation, measurement of angles, right? Angles measured anti-clockwise, that is positive. So if this looking like about, let me say 40, that looking like about 45 degrees. If we measure it, if we move like this, that is plus 45 degrees, right? You don't need the positive sign. But if we move like this, this is minus 45 degrees. See? Again, you're reversing. If you define positive as moving anti-clockwise, when you're talking about angles, then clockwise is negative, right? If we're talking about acceleration, something we could relate to physically, you're speeding up or you're slowing down. When we're discussing particle mechanics and the motion of different bodies and stuff like that, very often we have to consider situations where whatever the thing is that moving, the speed is increasing or the speed is decreasing. Yeah? So, if the speed is increasing, let me say it is increasing at a rate of 5 meters per second squared. So every second, the speed is increasing by 5 meters per second. You're accelerating, right? We talk about 0 to 60 in 10 seconds. That's acceleration. So you move from 0 to 60 meters per second, or 60 kilometers per hour, whatever it is, I'm really not sure. But the whole idea of 0 to 60 means that your speed increasing from 0 to 60. That is acceleration. So in other words, if your speed moves from 0 to 60 in, let me say, 10 seconds, let me use numbers that are easy to deal with, right? So 0 to 60 in 10 seconds, it means that the acceleration is 60 over 10, right? That is plus 6 meters per second squared. Don't worry about all the fine details. Just understand that if you're speeding up, the acceleration is positive. If after the car reaches 60 meters, whatever, meters per second, right? Let me go with meters for now. It's time for the car to slow down, right? So, let me say it slows down from a speed of 60 meters per second to 0. So in other words, we're going backwards now, from 60 to 0, as opposed to 0 to 60. 60 to 0 in the same 10 seconds. Now we are decelerating because your speed is decreasing. It means that you're slowing down. In mathematics, that would be signified by a negative sign. So it's the same 60, you know, but this time is 60 going down, not 60 going up. This is 60 moving from 60 to 0, not 0 to 60. So without getting into the fine details of the arithmetic and all that, if you're decreasing by 60 in the same 10 seconds, then your deceleration, note how I'm being careful with my words, would be 6 minus 6. In other words, you have a negative acceleration of 6. Sorry, you have a negative acceleration. Yes, a negative acceleration of 6 meters per second squared. A deceleration of 6. So in other words, your accelerate is positive, your decelerate is negative. Right? Those are just a few. Oh, one more topic I want to use to illustrate the issue of reversal. And that is the topic of indices. Right? We know that, let me say, 6 squared. We know 6 squared is 36. Squares and square roots now. Right? 6 to the power of 2 is, let me say, 6 by 6, which is equal to 36. What happens if I come and I say 6 to the power of minus 2? In this particular topic, the minus 2 also signifies reversal. But the reversal manifests itself as a reciprocal. In other words, you're flipping, you're inverting, you're going counter to what you already established. Yeah? So if 6 squared is 6 by 6 is 36, then 6 to the power of minus 2, according to the rules that we established here, would be 1 over 6 by 6, which is equal to 1 over 36. In this context, the reversal is manifested as a reciprocal. So you have 36 over here, and over here, you have 1 over 36. Right? I will stop there in terms of examples, because we could go on and on and on and on for as long as we want with examples from all kind of different topics in maths, and I'm sure we could get examples too from outside of the mathematics. All of that to say that I want you to keep in mind that usually, not every single time, but usually the negative sign signifies reversal. If you keep that in mind, it would save you a lot of trouble in terms of trying to understand certain things. And as I say in that, one more example comes to mind. You see? Straight lines. Gradient of a straight line. Right? In coordinate geometry, we know that a line with a positive gradient is oriented in this particular manner, from left to right. Right? That is the orientation of a line with a positive gradient. Which means that if the line has a negative gradient, the orientation will be counter to this, which would then be like this. Yeah? Simple example. Again, reversal. The theme is one of reversal. Let me just change the color here, because sometimes the light colors tend to be not so visible. Right? So, positive gradient and negative gradient. Yeah? So in other words, in this case, we have a reversal of orientation. Right? But we're still reversing something. Yeah? I try not to think of any other examples now, because I don't want to make the video too long, because I think the point has already been made that the negative sign signifies reversal. And you could use that as the start, your beginning point, to understand what the negative sign means in any topic in maths. It may happen that in some particular topic or the other, the negative sign means something that may not necessarily be a reversal of anything. It just means something specific to that topic. However, I could go as far as to say that that will not normally be the case. Usually, I don't know if it's 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10, but usually, in most cases, and I dare say, in the overwhelming majority of cases, you could start out from the premise that the negative sign, whenever you see it, is an indication of a reversal. Once you get that down, it opens up your whole vista to a more rapid comprehension of the meaning, the interpretation, and the execution of interactions where the negative sign is concerned, from topic to topic, in mathematics and outside of mathematics.